I want to preface this and say that what you're about to hear should not be used as a means to publicly accuse others of having any of the chakra dysfunctions I'm about to outline. It is strictly for your own benefit, and it's to help you identify whether or not you might need to do a little bit of work on yourself. I can say for certain that I need to do some work on myself, so this is not about me in any way judging you. I'm on a journey just like everybody else. Think of it as a map. I might have a map, but that doesn't mean that I'm any closer to the destination than you are. I'm prone to some of the very dysfunctions I'm about to outline myself, and I'm just as messed up and imperfect as anyone else. So don't use this as a tool to beat people over the head with. The principle of the root chakra is grounding. This pertains to laying the foundations upon which your identity rests. Your basic instincts are rooted here, the most primal of which being survival. From this springs your sense of belonging, safety, and security, which gives rise to issues such as money and sexuality. That is not to say it deals specifically with the nature of those particular needs, but more so the order of importance that you place those needs in terms of your survival in the world. In a sense, the root chakra is the primordial soup from which blossoms a vast array of different characteristics that, when combined, form your personality. The root chakra is like the root of the plant or the tree. It connects you to the earth. But if your soil is bad, then the tree that is your personality will inevitably produce bad fruits. Now, survival being a concern, security becomes an important need. Not just security in the sense of your physical well-being in terms of staying alive, but the survival of your identity, the core principles that make you who you are. Motivational factors. In other words, the fundamental driving force behind your personality. So, if your motivation is money above all else, then your main priority will be gaining and maintaining your security via the acquisition of wealth, getting rich by any means necessary. If your primary instinct is sexuality, you may end up going in any number of directions to fulfill your desires. Someone of this nature seeks to impress the opposite sex, and will often go to ridiculous lengths to do so. In some cases, it will come straight back to money, as the sex-driven man seeks to accumulate wealth to procure whatever it is he feels he needs in order to attract women. Nice cars, expensive clothing, that sort of thing. Since more than enough women will respond to this and give him what he wants, he will have little reason to doubt himself. However, such a man will become a magnet for gold diggers. Another route the sex-driven man may take is the so-called bad boy approach. Now, since there are more than enough women who throw themselves at this type of man and deem less aggressive men to be boring or too nice, the bad boy has little motivation to change. So all in all, sexuality and money, while not intrinsically bad things, good things in the right dosage, are not the best things to base the foundations of your personality on. In the same way that porridge tastes pretty good, and it is good for you, but you wouldn't want to build a house on top of the porridge. So if you're going to base your personality on solid foundations, you need something of substance. You need moral principles. One who is governed by principles before all else has substance from which he or she can draw upon to form their core identity. So this comes down to the higher self being the guiding force of the ego, Mercury guiding the lady in red. This is why Kepha and Melkaf are interchangeable in the Tree of Life. When functioning in the correct manner, Kepha, the crown, is in Melkaf, the earth. As above, so below. Remember, the higher self rules the ego and the shadow. Now, as with all things, each chakra has a positive and a negative pole, a yin and a yang. The poles need to be balanced in order for each chakra to function in the correct way. In the case of the root chakra, a yang imbalance means you're too material oriented. A yin imbalance means you're stuck in la la land. Now, those who are too far yang are often operating from fight or flight, whereas those too far yin are often very unrealistic and dependent on others for their survival. Those who have no principles on which their character are based will operate entirely on the false values and paramoralisms of the culture that they're a part of. They will be reflections of the world around them. Since they have no true sense of self, they will seek validation from those around them for their security, shunning truth and wisdom in favour of popular opinion and approval. A person of this nature condemns his or herself to a life of insecurity, thus their root chakra will not function as it should, and no matter how hard they try, they will never truly know happiness. Money will not change this, sex will not change this, romance won't change this. In fact, due to your having no core principles, you will attract equally unprincipled, vapid and useless creatures into your life. The black hole where your soul should be will never be filled, and you will die miserable. Society is structured in such a way that principles are shunned in favour of the above miserable existence. Take, for example, the use of sexuality as a control mechanism. Males are taught that they are to base their self-worth on their ability to attract the opposite sex and get laid. Those who have trouble keeping up with this expectation, or who flat out reject it altogether, are shamed as virgins, not just by fellow males, but by females as well. Sexual images are pervasive in advertising and media, all as a means to control the male libido. And naturally, this results in lots of detached sex and unplanned pregnancies. Then the man is told what a dirty dog he is, informed that he should have kept it in his pants, and shamed as a deadbeat dad. Now, that's not to suggest that he shouldn't have kept it in his pants, but bear with me here. The woman is told that despite the fact she chose to have sex, despite the fact that she knew her partner wore no protection, and despite the fact that she has at least 14 different forms of birth control available to her, compared to the male's 2, one of which is not 100% efficient, and the other a surgical procedure. But she is told that it's all the man's fault. But don't worry, we the government will reward your behaviour. In fact, the more quote-unquote unplanned, wink wink nudge nudge, pregnancies there are, the more money we'll throw at you. And as a bonus, we'll make speeches every Father's Day, and we will tell those evil men what deadbeats they are for not sticking around, while we placate you by telling you that you're strong and independent for allowing us to give you handouts. Now, before you get angry and think, oh no, I'm attacking women, you're wrong. I'm fully aware there are men out there that do fit the description of deadbeat dads, and I'm fully aware that plenty of women are not single mothers by choice. Widows would be the key example. This is obvious. However, I would ask that you be equally aware of the biased, anti-male family cults, and of the poisonous lies and the vitriol so often spewed into the impressionable ears of children against their fathers by bitter mothers, and of the women who feel it's perfectly acceptable to lie and claim that they're on birth control when they're not. Two people having irresponsible, unprotected sex is one thing. One person being tricked and deceived into thinking that they're having protected sex is quite another. Now, of course, people will say, well, you should wear protection. And of course, that is true. In fact, I'll go one further than that and say it's probably better just to refrain from detached sex altogether if you don't want children, because condoms are not 100% effective. But this does not make it okay for women to lie about being on birth control, and neither does it make it okay for the government to reward this deceptive behaviour with handouts, thereby actively encouraging it. But that is the whole point. The government rewards this behaviour because the government wants you to be dependent. It wants the father out of the house, and it wants to replace the father and take over the father's role. Why? So they can socially engineer the children and perpetuate the dependency. That's how big government grows. It takes advantage of the unprincipled males and the unprincipled females to expand itself. Just like the Antichrist consciousness brings you into oneness with itself in order to grow, the government is the outward expression of the Antichrist consciousness. So this all comes down to being grounded in principles, as opposed to being ungrounded and motivated by money and sex. That is why grounding is important. Ungrounded males pursue ungrounded females and vice versa. It's because a female is ungrounded that she seeks security in the arms of Big Brother and so-called bad boys and players. It is because she is not grounded in principles that she surrounds herself with equally ungrounded neurotic peers who validate and encourage her to do this. It is because a male is ungrounded in principles that he lives his life pursuing sex and caving in to the peer pressure of his neurotic peers. The cycle continues. Ungrounded parents raise ungrounded kids, and so on and so forth. The point here is to illustrate the inevitable decline and ultimate destruction of civilization that this nihilistic state of affairs will engender. Nothing good will come of this, not for men or women. Unbridled hedonism and all-around licentiousness signals the end of any worthwhile culture that it has plagued. The edification of an individual who places pleasure above all else is nigh on impossible. How can someone grow spiritually if all they care about is pleasing themselves in the moment? Now, when I said males are taught to behave this way and females to reward it, I'm not suggesting that there is not a biological basis for this. Of course there is. It's basic instinct. The point is, we have a higher spiritual capacity than this, and social engineering is being used to stifle that capacity. Women are told that it is empowering to exist this way, and then simultaneously they are shamed by these very same sick and twisted reprobates into thinking that marriage and child rearing is some form of slavery, akin to being chained to a sink, as it were. Look, I'm not saying you have to get married and have kids, because I'm not getting married. It's borderline suicidal for men to marry in the current climate. I'm a hermit by nature, so I understand that from time to time there will be both men and women who would rather pursue other avenues in life. No one should be shamed for that. That's fine. But that shouldn't be the standard. It is the exception, but not the rule. It is not healthy to try and make the exception the rule and the rule the exception. That is why grounding is important. Ungrounded males pursue ungrounded females and vice versa. It's because a female is ungrounded that she seeks security in the arms of Big Brother and so-called bad boys and players. It is because she is not grounded in principles that she surrounds herself with equally ungrounded neurotic peers who validate and encourage her to do this. It is because a male is ungrounded in principles that he lives his life pursuing sex and caving in to the peer pressure of his neurotic peers. The cycle continues. Ungrounded parents raise ungrounded kids, and so on and so forth. So this is the importance of the root chakra and being grounded in a solid foundation, which is to say an understanding of principles. The extreme yang of this chakra cares only about their basic instincts. They're stuck on eat, sleep, fuck, repeat. They will go to any lengths to maintain that lifestyle and will often think that those who live principled lives are stuck up and gullible. They will have a crab in the bucket mentality, believing that anyone who isn't focused solely on the narrow range of interests that they're concerned with needs to be dragged kicking and screaming down to their primitive level. They will happily exploit any perceived weakness in others for their own ends, and they'll believe that their ability to inflict pain on the weak is a strength on their part. Doing so makes them feel like king of the jungle. They fit hand in hand with their extreme yin counterparts, as these extreme yin types rely on them to provide for them and will validate and approve of their sociopathic behaviour as long as they're benefiting from it. The extreme yins of this chakra are equally, if not more so, exploitative, and they exploit the massive egos of their extreme yang providers, until they're done with them, that is, in which case they revert back to reliance on government handouts. More often than not, they'll keep pushing out babies to increase the amount of money they receive from big government. So the yang and the yin of this chakra are both exploitative and exploited. So, now we've fully explored the Muladhara, the first chakra, we can move on to the second chakra,